Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I like to discuss how Kwasi Kwarteng, the former Chancellor who delivered the Liz Truss mini-budget, which ended both his own political career and basically ensured that the Tories had no realistic chance of winning the election, has clearly broken with his old gang. He has published a comment piece in the iPaper where he focused on the inauguration of President Trump this week, and he could have chosen to discuss lots of things from various angles, but he decided to, first of all, tear Trump down and then point out the humiliating position that his former close colleagues, including his boss Liz Truss, found themselves in this week. In fact, Kwarteng has probably been the most savage critic of the Tories in Washington, much more brutal than any left-wing commentators I've seen, who largely ignored them. I mean, let us know what you really think, Kwasi. But first, for daily political commentary, please hit the subscribe button so you stay notified. So, after another miserable performance from Kemi Badenoch in PMQs this week, the story of the Conservatives has been the story of the Conservatives in America. Rishi Sunak has a part-time job in California now, you know, just to keep demonstrating that he's definitely not going to be leaving the country for the Golden State to be with his fellow tech bros. But other Conservatives were just trying to catch some of the radiance of the other Golden State, the orange one himself, the newly inaugurated President Trump. Boris Johnson, Nigel Farage, Liz Truss, Suella Braverman, Priti Patel all flew off to Washington to be at Trump's inauguration. Only one of them actually attended the inauguration itself, though, after it was moved indoors. It was not Liz Truss in her MAGA hat, who is desperately trying to persuade America to accept a British reject to their speech circuit. It wasn't Priti Patel either, the only senior member of the Conservative Party to bother trying to get a golden ticket. Wasn't even Nigel Farage, bootlicker in chief. Well, bootlicker as well, actually, depending how you look at it. The man who looked like a dog with two tails when Trump mentioned him by name at his last pre-election rally. No, sorry, Nigel, you didn't seem to make the cut, but I'm going to discuss that a little bit more tomorrow, I think. Maybe it was related to Musk describing as unfit to lead, or possibly just because Trump sees Farage as an amusement now, but not a serious ally. No, the only Conservative invited to the inauguration proper was Boris Johnson. The man the Conservatives rejected, the only one to be accepted by Trump as a suitable courtier. And not many really made much of this. Perhaps we just see the Conservatives as a bit pathetic. And there comes a point where you just feel bad for them. A little bit like I always say when pointing out something particularly stupid that Lee Anderson has done or said. He did it again this week, but I can't bring myself to jump on every example because there comes a point where you wonder if you're crossing the line from ridicule to bullying if you do too much. But Kwarteng went straight for the jugular in his article. If anyone was going to make a meal of the only Tory being invited to the inauguration being the one that both Tory parties have rejected, I didn't think it was going to be another Tory. Kwarteng wasted no time in casting his former boss Liz Truss in a rather pathetic light, pointing out that she was desperately searching for relevance after losing it. He made Truss look particularly pathetic of the Tories who tried and failed to get invited, you know, by pointing out that she had actually been rejected by the British electorate. The others had only been rejected by Trump, not the entire public. Then he made a rather interesting point, which I have wondered about myself. He mused on why so many Conservatives want to get close to Trump when the new president is not particularly popular in the UK. This would not be at all confusing if the Conservatives were still in power, of course, because just like the Labour government are having to do now, the Tories would obviously have to flatter the American president in their own interests. But the Tories aren't in power. What's more, they're not going to be in power while Trump is president, unless he does something to America of the likes Putin did to Russia. But as the president doesn't have enough control in Congress, this is unlikely. I mean, you'd expect Conservatives to outwardly welcome the election of any Republican president, Trump no exception, of course. But the over-the-top fawning, which began with Kemi Badenoch suggesting Trump be invited to speak to the House of Commons and has seen the shadow Foreign Secretary Priti Patel being left in the cold to pay tribute to the new king of a foreign land on the streets with the general public. I mean, I think it's weird. It doesn't seem strategic, but they must have their reasons. But if they do, it would appear they're not widely known even amongst themselves. Kwasi Kwarteng was a senior Conservative minister for a long time. He knows these characters personally. He must still talk to them. And yet even he has said he's mystified as to why so many of his close former colleagues prostrate themselves at his altar, as he put it. If a former senior Conservative doesn't know why they're doing it, what chance do I have? Then he stuck the boot in. He said, I don't think he is worthy of worship and adulation by a servile crowd of British political figures, many of whose careers are effectively over. Ouch. I mean, most of them are still in Parliament. Ouch. Interestingly, for any Conservatives who go to the end of his article, because they'd have to get past a lot of uncomfortable lines him spitting out, he had some advice, which I've echoed in some of my own videos, although I don't think Conservatives listen to me either. He described Trump's presidency as a journey into the unknown, and that British politicians should be wary where it might lead them. Now, I've said before, even earlier today, where Reform UK and Farage are concerned, but it applies more so to the Conservatives, as Kwarteng notes, Trump is not very popular in the UK. More than that, some of his specific policies are going to be very unpopular, especially with the sort of swing voters which both the Conservatives and now Reform UK want to attract. Trump's term will have ended before the next general election, which means the legacy of that term will be fully in the public consciousness here. The best Labour are hoping for is that they can contain him for 2 years and then hope Congress does the rest after the midterms. So the best case scenario is that Trump does no major harm to the UK. We just flatter him a lot, invite him to dinner with the King, and not a lot happens. So the best outcome for the Tories and Reform UK is they end up cheerleading for a US president who doesn't do a lot. But Trump could end up doing a lot of damage, and being his banner bearer may not endear Badenoch or Farage to voters, if they're trying to appeal to them. Kwarteng is right to caution, because it's not clear how praising Trump so much helps the Conservatives. There's arguably more reason for Farage, because he wants to be in line for some more practical aid in the form of donations from rich MAGA Republicans if Musk himself is ultimately going to hold out. But the Tories are on a hiding to nothing. If they go full MAGA themselves, they will be competing with Reform UK, who already have the inside track, and they will lose a lot of their voters to the Lib Dems or even Labour. So they will probably be 1 foot in, 1 foot out MAGA enthusiasts, which is just weak and appeals to neither camp. Perhaps as some think, Trump isn't the goal himself, but his strategists flatter Trump to be allowed to meet with his campaign team and learn some insights. Although given that Trump largely ignored his own strategies, I don't know how useful that would be, but they may have something of use for the Tories. But being seen to uncritically praise Trump and everything he does carry risks in a year or two. Labour have to do it because they're in government and they're doing it in the UK national interest. And even then, they're not backing everything. But why are the Tories? What's in it for them? At just the time the Tories may be evaluating Badenoch's leadership, when the midterms are happening, it may well be that Trump is very, very unpopular, and so is everyone who cheered him. Perhaps this is why Kwarteng is speaking up. I'm not sure he's just randomly decided to reinvent himself as a humiliator of Tories. So perhaps he's trying to wake his party up to the dangers. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. If you've enjoyed the video, please click the like button and subscribe for further content. If you'd like to support the channel further, you can click the join button for memberships. Thanks for watching. And until next time, I'll see you later.